Hi, this is Karen O'Brien, and I have another tech support video. This one's very easy. So this is an issue because this is what we call a dangling grid element, meaning that it's only connected to its neighbors by one, and there's another one even worse over here. We don't see this very often, but we do see it a little bit more in QGIS because you have people who can build their own shapefiles and may not understand the purpose of why we build the shapefiles, kind of like in rectangles or a little bit more rectangular. You certainly don't have to have a perfectly rectangular shape computational domain, but it does help with issues like this. So it's a pretty simple fix. Let's just take all these dudes and just delete them. Same thing here. Let's just delete these guys. And then we'll just try to, there's no reason for this to be. Okay, there's not really any reason not to include this entire area unless you don't have the elevation data, which if that's the case, honestly, it's not going to get flooded anyway because it's well upstream of the area of interest. So if you just delete that one and maybe just kind of straighten that one up a little bit, that would be probably fine right here. And let's just delete that one. Okay, so something a little bit more like this would be a bit more appropriate. And then let's save that and recompute the grid. So create the grid, and let's just use the computational domain. And you'll see here that grid element number 1 will now have close enough neighbors to correctly count for the grid element, and you won't have that funky little things in your going on with your project. Would maybe just open that project in GDS just to show you how Flow2D reads that data. So let me show you kind of how Flow2D would read this data by loading this project into GDS real quick, which you actually have to set some switches to do that. So don't try it on your own and you see here that it just completely confuses Flow2D. So super, super simple fix. Just make sure that when you're dealing with at least the first part of those grid element number 1, that you kind of sort that out. And let's see if we have, oh dude, we totally have enough data just on the corner of this. So let me just do this one more time. I'm gonna just edit and just get this down here. This will be no problem at all. And then we'll create the grid again. Let's try that. Keep that kind of straight. Okay, and then create the grid again and go ahead and click OK and click yes and click yes. And then we'll show you grid element number 1, and then I'll post this video. Okay, so there are another 75,000 cells, 30-meter cells, and grid element number 1 is now right here. So if that's a little bit off, you might, but you can see it's, as long as you get like down here to here, you could kind of go in like this. That wouldn't be a problem. But, and even up here, you don't really need all this up here. You just can kind of cut that off too. That really, again, that wouldn't really be a problem. And if you want, you can put your inflow node like further down out of this area, so that either way that doesn't need to be, that's not really an issue either. And then everything else looks good. So hit the elevation, and then your end values and your boundary conditions, all that thing will need to be reprocessed, because once you change that grid, you have to reprocess everything. So this will be just a matter of, should anyway. Let's see, where's our grid? I think our elevation data is in front of it. Yeah, there we go. We got it. These guys, might want to be careful with these guys. They're not covered. So maybe just pull that line down a little bit so that it intersects with those. Other than that, it looks fine. And since you're not running rainfall, it won't matter anyway, but just I would say just drag that whole line down to right here and let it intersect right there. Inflow node was just your, come straight from your, let's see what that inflow hydrograph says. Yeah, there's nothing in it right now, I don't think. That's okay. Might have to load that data back in and re-schematize it. And then just re-schematize it, re-schematize your boundary, and recalculate your end values, and then it's ready to run. Let's check and see what your switches say. So this is a mud and debris flow. I would say don't do a time series at 0.01 hours because QGIS won't even read that. So just keep that at 0.5 hours so QGIS can read it and you can get your animation data, and we'll put that to 4. And everything else looks good. Oh, I wouldn't run this in detailed graphics either. It'll slow things down. So run it in that. And there was one more thing in here I didn't, this update interval, it was this guy right here. This does not need to be 0.01. That'll slow things down, or that'll give you instabilities. So let's just 0.03 for that, for metric. And then everything else should be good. So you save it and export it. So I'll just send this video on and you can see how to fix that issue.